Good afternoon. How's everybody doing? Good? Great. All right. Thank you for being here. I'm going to do a very brief introduction and just tell you kind of what the format is. But we are very, very lucky, very fortunate to have Stephen Shaffer here, the CIO of Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. We have all heard and been talking about this emerging concept of low code. What does that mean? Where does it fit in your portfolio of development approaches? What are the trends driving it, right? The availability of developers and skills and expectations that are changing with millennials and beyond, and the speed of delivery overall in terms of really driving transformation. So we're in the early days here of all of this. And as with any trend, there are going to be things that are kind of universal across commercial and public sectors. And there are going to be things that are specific to one or the other. Now, DFW, although these are early days, has really been a pioneer thus far in exploring this concept of low code and how to turn it into value. How do you use it? How do you harness it? So, Stephen, thank you very much. You're going to share with us a little bit of your experiences and perspectives around, how you sort of approach it and make use of it, but also, what you're learning in terms of how it continues to evolve and how this phenomenon will continue to grow. So what we're going to do is Stephen's going to talk about that and share some thoughts for about 30 minutes. And then we're also very fortunate to have a repeat performance from Clay Richardson of Forrester. And following on Clay's fantastic keynote of kind of setting all the stage of this yesterday, Clay's going to open up and kind of lead us all in some Q&A so we can really put Steve on the spot and pepper him. With that said, Steve, thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, and thank you for the warm introduction. This is my first Appian world. I've actually only been at DFW for about 18, maybe 17 months now. So this is my first Appian world. I was lucky enough to walk into a shop that had just really started to use Appian, and so it was great to see it in action and then apply some kind of new vision to how we were using the platform. But if I could take a couple minutes before we get into that good stuff, I want to tell you a little bit about DFW Airport and where we come from and what we're doing, because not only do we have a story about how we're using Appian today, we've got a challenge going forward on how we're going to use Appian tomorrow. And I think when you see this and you hear what comes out of my mouth from an airport perspective, you'll say, most of us are all travelers in this room, you'll say, that guy's just crazy. But I think you'll be excited. You'll be like, he'll never do that, but it sounds great. It sounds really good. So DFW Airport's 40 years old. It was built in 1974, and it actually is a joint venture, if you want to call it that, between the city of Dallas and the city of Fort Worth. It's that way even though it doesn't touch any of those municipalities. But that's where we derive our powers from, and we are actually a municipality. So sometimes you'll hear folks say, hey, DFW is as big as a city. Well, the great news is we actually are a city. Whereas other airports might be run by the city, like the Chicago O'Hare is run by the Department of Aviation for the city. And here in DC, you've got the Metropolitan Washington Airport Authority. It's an authority like a water authority, but we are an actual municipality. So we are a city. We are about 18,000 acres in size, and so that's larger than the island of Manhattan from tip to tail. We're the third busiest airport in the world based on flights, and on any given day, we're 9th or 10th in the world based on the number of passengers we have. And the delta there is we've got a significant amount of cargo traffic coming in and out of the airport, right? We've got 5 terminals, 165 gates, 27 domestic and international airlines for a total of 1,900 flights a day in and out of the airport. A lot of times people say, well, who are your customers? And for me, I've got a lot of customers, right? So I support and host services for 6 state and federal agencies at the airport. We've got 250 concessionaires in the airport, so that's your Taco Bell and your Salt Lick barbecue joint that's in there. And we've got 1,800 employees that work for the airport, right? For the city, for the municipality. But we also have 67,000 employees that work at the airport. So that's your Starbucks barista, that's your American Airlines, gate agent, that's your Burger King worker. And we provide a tremendous amount of services to those people. We also have got 22 million square feet of commercial real estate. So in anything that's not runway and concrete, we probably have a warehouse or an office building, or we're developing some property. And then the big one is we've got 64 million passengers a year transiting the airport, right? So pretty big place. So today, 56 international destinations, 156 total destinations. And really, in the last 5 years, our objective at the airport has been to grow international travel to and from Dallas. And so we've added 22 new international destinations in the last set of years, and 10 new international carriers. And we just found out not 2 weeks ago that we are now the #1 airport in connecting Asia Pac traffic to Latin America. And we're not a little bit, we're double. So we're double Los Angeles in terms of connecting traffic down to Latin America. And that's a huge untapped gateway right now. So all of that, all that drives a huge economic engine for the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. So we just had this annual economic impact study done about 10 months ago. And so we drive $37 billion of economic activity in the region. And in addition to those 67,000 jobs that work at the airport, we help support another 228,000 jobs in the region at a payroll value of about $12.5 billion. So anything we do at the airport from an investment or a capabilities perspective is really to support the region. And that's really where our board of directors is focused, is making sure that we continue to be the economic driver for the region. But with that being said, we've kind of got some historic baggage, right? We have a very large distributed campus. The airport itself, we have 25 buildings on the property, right, where we have employees at. We have multiple regulatory layers, the TSA, the FAA, Customs and Border, our own state of Texas. We have our own police and fire force, so we have Department of Public Safety and criminal justice regulatory requirements. So really rapidly changing environment, especially when you add weather into the mix, right? Then it's really changing, right? So if you look at our budgets, we're kind of funded to support the 1,800 employees that work at the airport and the airlines. But at the end of the day, I end up supporting those 67,000 additional folks who work at the airport. And sometimes that delta gets missed when you're budgeting, right? So along with that large distributed campus, a lot of paper, right? A lot of interoffice mail in the past, right? Getting the stuff around to those 20 buildings. And then, not to say it as a pejorative, but we've got the public sector pacing, right? We've got very rigorous procurement rules that we have to follow. We've got, the cultural, I've been with the airport forever. And so we've got some of those pacing problems that we're faced with. And so I'm going to share with you, if I could take another minute or so, I'm going to show you a video. Right? And this isn't to brag about our marketing department at all, but there'll be some context after this. This is our new brand video that we just launched.
Starts with people who dream boldly, with the courage to imagine what's next. Like the visionaries who saw pastures between two cities and envisioned a gateway to possibilities and made the vision real. Now, Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport is reimagining what an airport can be, becoming one of the world's best, and not just a stop on the way to your destination, but a destination itself. A global super hub, connecting DFW to the world and the world to DFW. We envision an airport where the people, services, and amenities make you feel welcome, where you can recharge and never miss a beat. A place that mixes local flavor and the flavors of the world in equal portions. Where that unexpected escape awaits to make your travel more fulfilling. A place where your departure begins before ever leaving the ground. It's a bold vision for an airport. We're passionate about making it real every day. And excited about being a part of your journey. Welcome to new beginnings. Welcome to what's next. Welcome to DFW International Airport. Travel transformed.
So that's our new brand and our new strategic tagline, Travel Transformed. Let me switch back to my slides here. And so our new brand and strategic plan, when you look at that video, that doesn't sound like an airport today, right? That doesn't sound like LaGuardia or Newark, right? It doesn't even sound like the DFW of the past. And so what we've said we want to do is boxed in these 4 key results, right? We want to continue to manage operational excellence. Like who wants to be operationally unexcellent, right? But so we want to manage operational excellence. We want to have better direct access and communicate better.
How many terrorists did y'all catch today?
Whoa. I got my YouTube still playing.
2.
I don't like that T word, man. Woo! It could have been horribly wrong, right? I mean, there's just so much that could have went wrong with that, right? How many terrorists did you catch today? I'll have to watch that video after. I don't even know what that is. So we want to have direct access to the 67,000 folks that work at the airport. In fact, we want to treat them and we want to provide services to them like they're part of the 1,800. Of course, we want to sell DFW products. And here's the catcher. Here's the big one. We want to choreograph the individual experience. We want to choreograph an individual experience for the 64 million passengers a year that come to and from the airport. And so that means Ben's is going to be different than somebody else's, right? My experience is different than yours. And how that kind of works is, imagine you're driving to the airport and you arrive at the toll booth and we see you, we know it's you, you're a DFW customer, you have our app, and at the same time, I know you're running late because you've told me you're flying out at 3. So your experience might be, today, I offer you a comp on valet and say, hey, I see you're running late, go take valet parking today, it's on us, right? Or you get to the terminal early, right? And I know that you like to sit down, and I know your gate's over here, so I'm gonna send you a message that says, hey, go visit the Riata Grill. It's a great sit-down local restaurant, right? So that's what we're talking about for the 64 million experiences, right? And to say it that way, that is something that airports just aren't saying today. Because a lot of times we cede who the customer is to the airlines, right? The airlines say, hey, that's our customer. But we're saying no more. We've got to go do these things, right? So that goal, those goals are pretty audacious, especially for a public sector company to go do those kinds of things, right? Lot to be done. And ultimately, our resources are pretty finite, especially when you think about, I'm really only budgeted for the 1,800, not the 67,000, and definitely not the 64 million, right? So the approach we've decided to take is say, hey, let's use the finite resources we have today. Let's automate what we can do. Let's become tremendously efficient in IT. And then let's use those resources to reinvest into the company and accomplish those 4 goals up there, right? And one of the ways we've said we're going to do that is by deploying low-code solutions, right, in a low-code environment. So, like I mentioned, we've had Appian for a while now. We've focused on automating the paper processes that we have, right? We've got about 40 apps out there right now, things like invoice approval, travel requests, expense reports, IT requests, employee parking, new project capture. So we've automated all that paper stuff that we've had in the past. We've processed about 42,000 requests and funneled about 126,000 approvals through to get that stuff done. And what is really great about our Appian deployment is the mobile solution has been embraced widely across the campus. And part of that is because we got a big campus. That's the only way they can get it done. And a lot of our folks are mobile, driving around in cars and trucks all day. So the mobile deployment has been fully embraced, right? Now, this hasn't come without some lessons learned. And these will sound very familiar to you because they're things that Clay said in his keynote. They're things that we've been talking about in the breakout sessions all week. So our lessons learned are you got to start small, right? Start with a small project. Start with an internal project in your IT department. And as you start to creep out into the business, start with an ally, right? Start with a business ally that you have, that you've had previous good experience with, somebody that is innovative themselves and willing to take some risks and some chances to do things, right? Remember, this is rapid development. Whether you call it agile or not, it has flavors of that, but you've got to train up your business analysis people and your relationship management. In fact, you kind of need to find the best developers you have and give them those skills to go participate in the business. One of the things we've done at DFW is we've taken some of the best communicators and business thinkers that we have, and we've created a business relationship group that's now forward deployed in the business. And that's actually where we see some of these Appian projects getting started, is coming from that work stream, right? Don't ignore security and compliance, so please keep that in mind, especially when you're doing this stuff. And it's very easy to introduce rogue IT inside of IT, right? So make sure that the legacy developers are dialed in with the rapid developers, right? And don't abandon your processes around considering a build versus buy, right? When you have a powerful platform like Appian, it's really easy to say, hey, I'm going to build everything in Appian. And it's great, and I appreciate the product, but you still do not abandon those processes. You still need to sit down and say, no, we're going to go buy this one off the shelf. So a couple lessons learned there that I'll share with you, and not too many slides other than that, but I'm willing to let Clay start to dip in and pick my brain. Yeah?
Let's open it up. Open your brain.
There may be nothing in there.
Well, nah, I can see there's a lot. You okay if I come up?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, first, I think you did a great job. Really good job. I think you guys should give him a round of applause. I actually thought Ben invited me to do this QA session with you because I travel over 100,000 miles a year, and I'm sure many of you are in the same boat. And he was going to say, Clay, you're going to have an opportunity to get a jump to the head of line pass when you're in Dallas. So that's my first question to you. Can I get that? No,
yes,
I'm just kidding.
We can make that happen. Right.
Well,
I'll take airport questions too, if anyone wants behind the scenes, right?
Any secrets for like hideouts?
For what?
Just a question that I had, just looking at the deck, look at how much you guys have done, is what is the size of your team and the makeup of your team?
Well, so we have also recently went through a reorg, right, to kind of fit this model better. And so prior to 18 months ago, I'll talk about what it was and what it is now. Prior to 18 months ago, it was broken up into two big sections.
Okay.
One was supporting the business, right? So the headquarters and the PeopleSoft and the Oracle financials, and then the terminal side, so things at the airport.
Okay.
But when you sat down and looked at the structure of that, I actually had two separate IT departments. Oh. There were developers in both of those silos. There were PMs in both of those silos. There were even field technicians in both of those silos. Oh, wow. So what we said is, we're going to go ahead and centralize all our stuff. And now we've got a dedicated department just to application development and delivery, right? Okay. Now inside of there's app dev, right? And that's where the Appian folks live. And I've got one of my developers here today. John, what is about 10 in there? Yeah, there's about 10 folks in that group, right?
Okay.
Then we've got an integration group who really works on SOA and web services and integrating
So pieces
systems.
that the Appian team may leverage at some
that
point.
stuff,
right?
yeah.
I see.
And there's about 7 or 8 folks in that group. And then we've got a very deep business intelligence and analytics group. And there's probably 12 people in that.
Okay.
So we've actually invested more in BI than we have in app dev.
Okay.
Right?
And so it sounds like your Appian team is primarily developers with, you're getting them to have more business analysis.
They are
skills.
legacy developers on their way to this.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Well, maybe we open it up to questions. I'll interrogate you all day and beg you for jump to the head of the line pass. But maybe we open up to questions.
There are none. And I'll take airport questions too. Yeah.
So early in your talk, Steve, you said you talked about public sector pace.
Yeah.
So how does public sector pace match with low-code agile mentality?
It doesn't right now, at least not at DFW, right? We just did one project not too long ago where we took the business relationship managers that were out in the business driving a request that should have been, and we said, let's run this process through and see how it works. It should have been relatively quick. But what we found is that the development team and the PMs still wanted to spend a lot of time in the requirements gathering and working on paper versus working in the environment, right? So a lot of time trying to get to the maximum valuable product versus the minimum valuable product. So that's something that we're learning. And that may not be public sector pacing. The private sector guys probably have that problem too in legacy shops, right? And so that's just one of the things that we're working on. So hey, we'll try it again, right? Maybe the process is agile.
Yeah, the process itself.
Yeah.
You just keep iterating.
Yeah, just keep iterating and say, all right, that didn't work quite right. What went wrong? Let's take another stab at it, right?
Sounds like continuous learning.
Yeah.
You're folding it back in. I'm curious, one of the things I loved about the video and where you guys are going is you're focused on improving the experience.
Yeah.
Right? How do you make that better is what it looks like you guys are trying to figure out. But I'm curious, what are your metrics for the team, how they're using Appian to actually drive towards that experience? Are you connecting those two things?
Well, so I think we've got to migrate because I think traditional metrics, which would be number of forms processed, right?
Exactly.
And
exactly.
You don't get a sense of that with those numbers. It's kind of like saying, hey, are your systems 100% available, yet they're running in a degraded state from the customer experience, right? So availability isn't a good metric, right? So I think we're trying to figure out what the right metrics are going to be.
But do you see that converging, like the image that you're working towards and where you are right now with Appian? You see those two things coming together to say,
definitely,
Appian supporting better choreographed customer experience.
Oh yeah, and who knows? As we dig right, the first thing we're doing right now is we're doing journey mapping.
Yeah,
right.
That's exactly where.
Right, where before we said our journey is when you park in the garage and you get to the security line, but now we're saying to us the journey starts when you wake up in the morning and put your feet on the floor. Right. And so as we're mapping that out, we may find out that Appian is a good container to hold that stuff.
Hold it.
Right.
Do you have how many of you have seen, like you've gone through airports and they had the smiley face, frowny face?
Yeah.
You guys have seen that?
Yeah.
I'm curious, do you do that?
Yeah, we do.
You have this, so you're tracking the journey as the person goes?
Yeah, we actually have that in our restrooms too.
Yeah, I've seen it in restrooms. It's kind of scary.
It is. Like, do I really want to touch that? Yeah. How about some video analytics? Just give a thumbs up.
Yeah,
right?
there you go.
But yeah, we have those metrics. But I think one of the things that we're trying to do, one of the things we recognize that we have to do, and I'll use the bathroom example with the smiley face. Today, that somebody hitting the red face is a tactical call to the janitor.
Oh.
There's no, from a step back, there's no director, right? There's no operations manager that is looking at a bigger picture going, look at all those red faces, right? And so if you think about the movie with Jim Carrey, The Truman Show.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Right?
Where
he's on the island, right?
Yeah.
And so you had Ed Harris was the director. And he's in the the
kind
booth.
Of network ops center.
Yeah, he's like,
whatever.
turn the rain on, turn the lights on. We don't have that. And until we build that, there's no way we can choreograph the 64 million events.
That's really fascinating because then it is about choreographing the experience. Like you can see where the experience is going bad. Maybe it is because there's 2 bathrooms closed in a particular area that's really busy. But you can now say, okay,
proactively keep people away from it, right? So we're not. So we know we have to do that. We know we need to build that room. We know we need to power that room with analytics to let the people that work in that room make data-driven decisions, right? And then Ed Harris can be there, and he's like, turn the water on. The director. Right?
Okay.
Which ultimately, that'd probably be a pretty cool job.
You have a question over here?
Just wanted to touch on your experience
really good.
leveraging the cloud, as well as the importance to pushing technologies in leveraging that type of alternative.
Well, I'll tell you, very similar to the previous presentation, when you talk about cloud, I won't specifically talk about Appian in the cloud, but just cloud in general and infrastructure as a service in general. As public sector groups have been around for X number of years and are looking at these technology refreshes, and they're looking at having to make investments to do low code, there is no infrastructure support or infrastructure support dollars to do that. So really the best and only lever for us to pull is the cloud lever. And so that's why we can do a lot more in the cloud, right, than we could if I walked into my infrastructure team and said, hey guys, I need 10 more servers tomorrow, right? So we will continue to expand our usage of cloud platforms, primarily as a technology replacement, refresh in itself. So the question was, what was user adoption like? And it was actually really good. I think, we probably waited a long time to automate processes. So you had a workforce that was frustrated with paper. And maybe you had folks that had come from other places to say, hey, over here it was automated. Why can't we automate this stuff here? So user adoption went really well. But I'll tell you, one of the issues we're having today, and Glenn and I talk about this, is now that we've got 40 apps out there, what's starting to happen, and I'm glad that Sites is coming along, it's starting to look like a dumping ground, right? It's starting to become more difficult for folks to navigate what we've got out there.
So they go in and try to figure out which of the 40 do I need to interact with.
And maybe 30 of the 40 have no applicability to that employee whatsoever, right? And so we're excited about Sites because now we could bring in a different taxonomy to organize that stuff more appropriately. And I think that'll drive continued user adoption.
And it almost sounds like, just to connect the question sounded like users logging in and accessing systems of record, like traditional legacy systems, how's the migration over? But it sounds like you're saying the system was paper.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So that transition was really them probably being happy that I don't have to track
It's not taking 2 months, it's taking 3 days.
Right, I see.
3 days.
So any other questions? We got one more.
Well, I think I got to think about that. My biggest surprise is they reluctantly, my team reluctantly gave me a sandbox, and even though I came from the app dev world many years ago, I was able to use it a lot quicker than I thought. I'm like, it can't be that easy. It was relatively easy for me to create my first app. I think I just shared my biggest disappointment, and that's not a pejorative, was the organization. Like what I fear is I just don't want this to become another SharePoint site, right? Mm-hmm. That's what I fear most about having a massive amount of functionality out there that isn't organized really well. So that's I don't want to say that's my disappointment. If you said what keeps you up at night, that's what I'd answer. What keeps me up at night about Appian.
I'm curious, did your team take your sandbox away from you?
Yeah, they've taken it away. Johnny, did you take my sandbox away?
Yeah. Was there one more question before we wrap up?
I have one.
Yeah.
With regards
Yeah, I think what's exciting is, as we did some internal IT applications and as business units start to see the functionality now that IT's using, and we deploy these relationship management folks into the business to really find out what the business wants,
Okay.
we are getting that I want that to effect. So now we've got 5 or 6 departments that have shown up that said, you know what? I need ticketing, I need work order and case management, I need inspections, I need contact management just like you have. And so I think what'll be exciting is to see, how we can roll those things out even faster than starting from scratch.
Are you planning to reuse those components? Like, it seems like.
Yeah, as much as we can.
Okay.
Really, what we're trying to do, we're actually going to take a step back. And, at the airport, we have data that doesn't have a system of record, right? It's
Okay.
managed in an Excel spreadsheet or an Access database, right? And so to hear Matt
You
talk
heard
about data record first,
Yeah.
we're taking a step back saying, well, wait a minute, we've got this 18,000 acres and there's all these objects out there, whether they're light poles or buildings or, a project. How can we use Appian to create like a master registry of those
Yeah, that's a good point.
so that they can be reused in later processes, right? So
That's interesting. You sparked 5, 6 different questions just in that. Because I'm thinking like, okay, IoT can fit into that.
Yes.
There's a lot of. What do you see as the next hurdle? Like, what's the big thing? I know you're going towards the customer experience and being able to choreograph. What do you see as the next big hurdle that you need to get across?
So it'll be interesting to see from the Appian perspective. Say we build those business rules that say, when I see Clay step into the building, go do this. If we can manage that in Appian, that's one. The second is, can I use Appian to deliver those messages, right? So more of a, could I replace an Eloqua with an Appian?
Got it.
Right? Or a Marketo with an Appian.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Steve.
Yeah.
Really good.
Thank you. Appreciate
Really good.
it.
Yeah, definitely. Man.